Hello and welcome, I'm Takele. With me here today, and of course a fitting guest to start the new year with, is Haben Girma. Deaf and blind at a very early age, and in spite of the monumental challenges that she faces, Haben moves with passion, optimism, and a sense of action. Note here that she is the first deaf-blind student ever to graduate from Harvard Law. Well, she's one of the inspiring pioneers of change that I've ever met. Also joining us is her assistant, Cameron. Haben Girma, a very warm welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I'm really excited to share and learn from my experience here in Ethiopia.
I know friends who are blind. I know plenty more who are deaf, but deaf and blind, that's quite a rarity.
It's true. It's true. Very few people are deaf-blind around the world, and that means it's a challenge for individuals who are deaf-blind to get an education, to find ways to communicate, because there are very few other people with that same challenge to share and learn from. So, as a person with both disabilities, I'm deaf-blind, so I have limited vision and limited hearing. Growing up in the United States, I had to find ways to access written material, to access auditory material. It was a lot of trial and error. Try one thing, if that doesn't work, try another thing. And I've learned a lot through the process.
Do you mean that institutions were not ready? The schools that you joined, that you went as a kid, as a toddler, when you started grade school in the United States, as far as accommodating people with double disability, if you will, like you have?
Most schools in the United States still struggle to provide access. So, for example, throughout the whole United States, only 6% of deafblind students have qualified teachers. Most don't have qualified teachers. So it's a huge problem, even within the United States and throughout the rest of the world. I was very lucky to go to a good school. My school, I went to a mainstream school, so it was a school for everyone.
Inclusive,
yes, inclusive. And I got the resources I needed. They taught me Braille. They showed me sign language. They showed me how to use computers. They taught me to advocate for myself, to ask teachers to do things differently so I'd have full access. I was very lucky to get that, but many students throughout the United States don't get that.
Interesting. I mean, the school might be an exception from what you just said, but a crowd of young people your age, I'm talking about the students, how well received were you by them?
So it's been different as I grow up. I'm 26 now. When I went to law school at Harvard, I found my classmates were very willing to connect with me. So the communication system that I'm using is different, and they've never met someone who uses this for communication. But they were willing to try something new and connect. When I was younger, in high school, in college, people at that age group are still learning to grow up, and there's a lot of insecurity and a lot of fear of difference, so they were not as good to reach out and connect with me. So people in my age group now are wonderful, but younger, it was a lot harder to connect with people.
So what you're saying is times have changed, and so have people's attitudes and perceptions and so on.
So with kids, maturity level changes and attitude changes. And as when people are younger, they're afraid of difference. They're afraid of something new. And then when they're teenagers, they're trying to look cool, and they're trying not to look different. Even myself, when I was a teenager, I didn't want to seem different. I wanted to hide technologies or canes that made me look different. And it takes maturity to accept and celebrate difference. And it took me time, and it took my peers time. So I enjoyed law school and made many friends in law school. But when people are younger, like in high school and middle school, they're not as good to connect with people who seem different.
So it was quite a struggle, wasn't it? When you were much younger? Not that you are too old now.
You're right. It was a struggle when I was younger to connect with people and make friends. It was very, very hard. And I kept trying, but it was difficult. So now I'm grateful that my peers and my age group are more willing to celebrate difference and try new things and have a curiosity that encourages them to go beyond their comfort zone.
You were not deaf and blind at birth, were you? It's only when you turned 5 that you went partially blind and partially deaf, right?
It's actually not entirely clear. I think my vision and hearing loss decreased, and we noticed around age 5. But when you're kids are always distracted, they do silly things, so sometimes parents don't notice right away if a child is struggling to see or hear.
So, when your parents decided that you have a serious hearing and sight issues, what was the reaction like from them? I mean, if you, I don't know, I'm sure you wouldn't remember that, as a 5-year-old kid, but definitely they must have related that story to you over and over again years later.
You're right. I don't remember their reactions when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was not interested in anything that was different or doctors or what my parents were saying even. I just wanted to play. So I heard the stories years later. And what they told me is that when they first discovered that I have both vision and hearing loss, they were scared and worried that I wouldn't have a future, that I wouldn't be able to do anything. And they took me to several doctors, really good doctors at Stanford and Berkeley. And still they told my parents that there wouldn't be a cure. And the last doctor told them, she has vision and hearing loss, and she might not be able to access things the same way other students do, but she'll be able to do it another way. It's like getting into a house. If your key for the front door doesn't work, you try something else. You try breaking the lock. You try opening the window. You try going to another door. So if you can't do something one way, you can do it another way. So then the doctors recommended schools that were inclusive, and I started learning Braille. I started learning how to use a white cane, and I learned all the tools that are necessary to be independent and successful as someone with a disability.
Your parents were determined to make you perhaps be the person that you are today.
Learning that your child has a disability causes a lot of emotions. There was shock, there was fear, and then there was determination and resilience. So they made sure that I went to a good school, that I learned Braille, white cane. They made sure I had the resources that I need. And when I told them I wanted to do something, they generally said, yes, you can do it. So I didn't just participate in school. I also took dance classes and ice skating and martial arts. I went to West Africa to help build a school with a non-profit organization called Build On, and they build schools all over the world.
And kayaking, for God's sake. You were raising the bar, right?
Have you ever been kayaking?
Well, I did run the river for 10 days out in the middle of nowhere, in the wilderness here, in what my friend, who is a river runner from Colorado, says is the queen of African river running. That is the river Gibe. So one of the boats flipped.
Wow. Wow. Not your boat, I hope.
No. But we rescued him, no problem. That was easy. But what I'm saying, I guess, is...
Wow.
You consider yourself experimental, or you want to do what others do? normal people do?
I want to live my truth. So I don't want to live my life trying to prove to people that I can do whatever you can do. That's stressful. That's a waste. I want to focus on what do I aspire to do? How best can I help people? What are my skills? And how can I use these talents and skills to get back to the community? So it's not normal versus disabled, non-disabled versus disabled. It's about what does each individual have to contribute and helping that individual reach their dreams.
But as I understand it, what you're trying to tell me is that I don't react to some stuff, that you are proactive in what you do, right? You live your life the way you want it, and you want to experiment too, right?
I live my life the way I want it and the way I can. So I wanted to be a lawyer because that's when I realized my skills and talents are in communication and writing and reasoning, and that's one way to help people. So as a lawyer, I can best help people. And so I didn't become a lawyer to prove to the community that deafblind people can be lawyers. I decided to become a lawyer because that is something that embraces my talents and allows me to give back to the community with talents that I'm good at. There is a lot of discrimination in the United States, a lot, and that's what my job is about. I work for a non-profit legal center, and we help people with disabilities who've been discriminated against. If a city has sidewalks so that wheelchair users can't get on and off the sidewalks, we represent them, the people with mobility disabilities, to get access to the city's sidewalks. A website that is inaccessible to blind readers, we filed a lawsuit against that website on behalf of blind individuals who wanted to be able to have equal access to that website.
Is that pending still, or?
Yes, that lawsuit is pending still.
I told you off camera, I think, that I grew up with blind friends. They used, what was it, the Braille typewriter, pretty noisy. Here is stylus smooth, the age of computers. That made your life a lot easier. And without these resources that we have right here on the table, you wouldn't be able to do anything. Is that the correct assessment, I think?
So if I didn't have this,
what would you use?
If I didn't have this, I might use sign language. Or I might use a different kind of communication. There's print on palm, where you can write on palm. There's palm on braille, where you type braille into someone's palm. So there are many different communication tools. Helen Keller went to college in an age before computers. She died in the 1960s, so before computers. So she didn't have this. So she used tactile sign language. The teacher would sign into her hand, and she would feel what the person is signing. So if computers weren't available, lots of other options exist. If you can't enter the main door, you could try a window or go through a side door. There are always possibilities.
Can I use and just...
You could try.
Right, and here is my question.
Once you start using these gadgets, there is no going back.
Is that
absolutely true? It really changes your life to use technology, and I am so grateful to have this technology. The main reason I'm here in Addis is because Esther Zode has set up a scholarship fund for blind students to go to Addis Ababa University. Tahai Zode Memorial Scholarship.
In memory of,
In memory of her sister who died in a plane crash years ago. Yes, exactly. And this scholarship has helped so many students. And one of the ways it's helping students is to create more technology and set up a technology center at Addis Ababa University. It is all about resources. Again. Exactly. And this technology costs money. It is expensive, but it's worth it. When you pay for this technology, in the long run, after a few years, that person with a disability is going to get a job, they're going to pay taxes, and those taxes, that income goes back to the community. So it's a worthwhile investment, and it allows that person to be independent and share their talents. Would you rather have a person with a disability stay home and just hide, or pay money for technology to have them doing work and being productive and contributing to society? Perceptions need to change. Exactly. Perceptions need to change. You're a fantastic typer, by the way. Thank you. You're welcome. I am beginning to like this. Would you like me to talk with an accent? Go ahead.
At Addis Ababa University, you gave a lecture, talked to women with disabilities. Most of them have, of course, benefited from this Zode scholarship that Pastor and her sisters and brothers created for the benefit of these girls who are at Addis Ababa University or higher institutions of learning. You've talked to them. You might not like this, but you gave a lecture, right? Did you make a difference?
I believe I did make a difference. So it's one thing to tell people you can do anything, and it's another thing to actually meet a person who went through college, went through law school, and is now working and has a disability. So I know I've helped these girls by sharing my story with them, and they're gonna go and work and inspire other Ethiopians with disabilities. So I had mentors when I was growing up, and they now have mentors who can inspire them. And it meant a lot for me to meet these girls and share my story with them. I think the High Zode Memorial Scholarship is going to really change Addis Ababa University and make it even more inclusive, giving voices to women who often don't have voices.
You go about trying to change perceptions, influence policy in the United States, because you're very well active in some of the organizations some of them you just mentioned. You have the Deaf Blind Young Adults in Action, you have the Disability Rights Advocates in Berkeley, California, and the National Association of Blind Students, and so on. You've been very, very, very active in a number of institutions that cater for people with disabilities. Broadly speaking, what is the strategy that needs to be designed to be able to achieve, whether at a community level, at a family level, I don't know how you grade?
There are many ways to change perceptions. There's no one right way, many, many different ways. And I do it multiple ways. One way is to share my story. I have videos on my website that anyone could see all around the world. And I get messages from people who've watched that story, that video, and are inspired. I've heard from parents of children with disabilities who say they've watched the video and realize that their child has many opportunities, and it gives them hope for their child that the world is still ahead of them, and they'll just need to find tools to be able to do whatever it is that they want to do. So sharing your story on the media, in writing, in spoken form, it's really, really powerful to share your story. So for example, this TV, you're helping change attitudes in Addis and bring a more positive perception of disability by sharing this story with families in Addis. So you're doing an amazing job changing this.
Well, thank
and
you.
if more people do this, that would help a lot.
But when you talk to people in Addis Ababa, now that you're here, you've been here, 2 weeks already? When you talk to people, are they fascinated? Are they excited when they talk to you? Because it's quite rarely that people would run into people such as yourself, who use technology, who act a little bit differently perhaps, and so on.
There are many different reactions. Some people are scared. They stay away, they keep their distance. They watch and they stare, but they don't come up and ask questions. Sometimes I offer them the keyboard, and they're like, no, I don't type. But I'm very interested in connecting with people. Even if you're a slow typist, I could still read slowly. I'll still be able to get the information. So there's been a variety of reactions. Then other people have been very curious, and they want to try. Even if they're not a good typist, they want to try. And we all learn from something new and something different.
You also went outside of Addis to several locations spread out in the country.
I feel hope, partly because I've met a lot of amazing disability rights leaders here. So I visited with many of the disability groups, and I've met a lot of great leaders. So there's a lot of positive stuff already happening here now, and I see a lot of positive change going forward. AAU, Addis Ababa University, is soon going to have a technology center for blind female students. That's amazing. Hi, Zode Memorial Scholarship, changing lives here. I went to Mekelle University last week and talked with the students there. And they are now also interested in having a technology center for students with disabilities. That's a lot to witness in 2 weeks. And I'm really honored to have witnessed this and to see these changes. It's absolutely amazing.
Have you made deaf and blind persons here?
I have. So today I went to the school for the deaf, and I met elementary school students who are deaf, and they showed me, what's your name? And the signs are just like in American Sign Language. This is also name in Ethiopian Sign Language and American Sign Language. I knew that there was some similarities across sign languages, but I didn't realize there were so many similarities between Ethiopian Sign and American Sign.
So as you go back home, I know you're joining some institution. What is it called?
So I'm going to go to Disability Rights Advocates, which is the law firm that I work for, a non-profit legal center that does disability rights work all across the United States. So I will return to that, but I will keep in touch with the disability leaders I met here and continue to share ideas and help in any way I can.
Haben, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you on my show.
Thank you for having me here. You're helping change attitudes by showing the story and getting it out to families in Ethiopia.